to become a breeding ground for the devil.
You're a spiritual whore. You filthy thing.
The series that had everyone vomiting around the water cooler on a double DVD collector's edition. Over an hour and a half of bonus footage, the uncensored Rove Fatwire story, and a Bible full of bonus exorcism scenes. John Safran vs. God, the double DVD out now.
This is powerful stuff. Oh, man.
Bob, why didn't you stand up for the Rainbow Sash people last week?
What do you mean stand up? Oh,
well, we had John Hurd
Why should
on.
I? What are you talking about?
Who bagged them. John Hurd was
Yes.
saying the Rainbow Sash people, the way they come up and ask for communion with the gay pride
Thank God I've never
ribbon.
seen them come up to ask for communion. I've never
John
seen them.
Hurd said
He
that's
said,
them saying
anecdotal evidence.
F the church.
Whatever.
And I got a phone call this week.
Yes.
Michael Kelly,
Yes.
head of the Rainbow Sash Coalition, and he was saying, why didn't Bob stand up
He
for
did
us?
not say that, surely.
He did. He was really upset. He said that's not the position of the Rainbow Sash people. They are not saying F
That's
the
all
church.
between them and the bosses, all right?
What will you do if they turned up to South Melbourne Church with the Rainbow Sashes trying to make a point?
Dunno.
That you don't know yet.
I'd say take that off.
You would say take that off?
Yeah. Otherwise, the IRA bloke next to him wants to put his on. And then we'll have, what's its name? Hezbollah. He wants to put his badge on.
Well, thank you very much, Father Bob. The whole point of me bringing that up was try to create a bit of balance because the Rainbow Sash people were upset that they were slandered last week. And now, within a minute, you've compared them to Hezbollah.
I understand the Rainbow Sash people's point of view, but as a tactic, it's inappropriate.
If one of your workmates smells, do you tell him or her?
Workmates smells.
Do you tell him and her?
Yes, you smell.
You just tell them, that's it.
Well, what's the alternative?
Have you ever told anyone they smelt around the church?
I can't remember.
Would
The
you-
poorer you are, the
more-
more you probably will smell, and therefore the more you probably deserve not to be further feel bad. Therefore, I would not be saying to the local Lazarus lying at the bloody door of the church with sores and the dog's licking the sores and the poor creature's got maggots crawling out of its ears and I say, by the way, brother, have a nice day, but you stink. I wouldn't do that.
Thank you, Father Bob.
Thank God. Is that the end of that?
Bob, there's a government campaign. Australia says no to violence against women. There's no government campaign. Australia says no to violence against men. Is domestic violence more weird and icky and confusing than we like to make out? Please introduce our guest.
US author Jim Goad, and he's not only written about domestic violence, he's gone to prison for 2.5 years for beating his girlfriend.
Now, Jim, most people think there's few things worse than hitting a woman. Are you evil?
Am I evil?
Yes.
Not as much as I would wish. Yeah. I would actually like to be the stereotypical woman beater because at least there's some power and control in that. I was being consistently harassed, threatened, stalked, and hit by this woman. And that doesn't really fit. She brilliantly, to the prosecutor, she played up the idea of how we perceive domestic violence, which is a man preying on a woman, but that wasn't the case. It was almost like a battered. The rage with which I hit her back on that occasion was what a battered woman who kills her husband was, that sort of rage. I was having an affair, my wife was dying, this woman was preying on my life's instinct for a year consistently, in ways which I never threatened her, never inaugurated any of the hitting. I hit her back, and I went to prison for it because she brilliantly played into these prejudices about how these situations operate.
And so you think there's a lot of women beating men, but it's just generally covered over because our society...
I think most of the sociological studies that have been conducted conclude the same thing. Strauss and Gellis, and I think they're from Chicago, they interviewed thousands of families. Consistently what they found, in about half of the cases it was mutual combat. A quarter of the cases, it was men hitting women exclusively. And a quarter of the cases, it was women hitting men exclusively. If you look at the stereotypes about domestic violence, that doesn't factor in at all. It's a predatory, evil, bloodthirsty, irredeemable man preying on an innocent, powerless woman.
Women sports persons are on the screens saying they've been stalked. That's become a kind of a news item.
A lot of women claiming to have been stalked.
Women, yes, by men.
Yeah,
but now, have you got the examples of men?
Well, the situation that landed me in prison, it's on my website. I have MP3s of her persistent death threats where she threatens to cut off my nipples, blow my head out of the universe. Complete stalking behavior. I genuinely feared for my life at the hands of this girl. I would come home from work and check the bushes to see that she wasn't there. I was terrified. When I landed in jail, I actually remember holding the plexiglass and looking outside and feeling relieved that she couldn't get to me in there. And again, as a male, it's sort of emasculating to say you were imperiled to that degree. You're supposed to just take everything, but I didn't want to take it after a while.
So she might have hit you first, but aren't you bigger than her? And broadening that out, aren't men generally more...
Men generally are, but that's not an exclusively rational excuse for why it's wrong to hit a woman. If I had stalked a huge NBA basketball player, if I had threatened to kill him repeatedly, if I had kept going after him, everybody would think he was justified for pounding my face into paste. The physical size difference, I don't think, exclusively explains it.
Besides girlfriends, have you experienced other violent women in other relationships?
Nuns. I went to Catholic school.
Nuns?
For 12, yeah. Sister Bridget Mary kept a closet full of yardsticks she'd broken over boys' asses. And it was in a gender-integrated school. She didn't hit the girls. The nuns really didn't prey upon the girls. We didn't even see priests, but the nuns were pretty malicious. There have been studies. There's a website, dvmen.org, which claims that 4/5 of humans' first exposure to violence in their lives is at the hands of their mother, which makes sense. A lot of times the father's not around. The idea that women are violent, I'm not trying to demonize them. No. I think that humanizes them. I'm not trying to just invert what they do with men and make them these subhuman animals, but they are violent, and I think most people have known a violent woman at some point in their life, or at least a malicious woman.
And was your mother violent?
Yeah, terribly, yeah. Both parents were.
In what way?
Would slap me around, yeah. Father hit me until I bled, but yeah, Mom would definitely slap me around. And other weird things.
How much is it a stigma to be labelled a woman beater? Like, has it affected your writing career?
Definitely. It's about this much higher than child molester, I think, at this point.
And what about girls? Like, if you're going on dates or anything, when they find out that you're a woman beater?
To my bemusement, I've had far more appeal to women since getting out of prison than ever before in my life, and they all know about my crime. And I'm not sure if it's a particular sort of woman, but it seems to turn on a certain sort of female. I have not had trouble finding dates since I got out. In the first 3 years after getting out of prison, I think I had maybe 3 times more conquests than in my entire life up until that.
You said you feel more guilty about having an affair than beating...
Sure. Because I believe that there are different ways to hurt people, and that was much more hurtful in the long run. And my wife and her both said that the cheating was what bothered them the most. They volunteered that. I didn't solicit that.
Yes. Is it different in each state? Is there different law?
Oregon was the worst for...
And you were in Oregon. And
yeah, of course. I'm always being short out of the state.
See what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, Oregon
different
was the most
states,
extreme.
different what?
Texas, you get a couple months for killing your wife if you find her in bed with another man. Yeah, it's different all over the place. The Pacific Northwest is intensely...
So it's a cultural thing again.
Yeah. I think if I'd been back home in Philadelphia, I would have gotten a traffic ticket and anger management classes, some sort of diversion, because it was my first offense.
Thank you very much.
Good to know. Got to know all these things.
When we go over to America to beat women, which cities?
Or to be beaten by women. To know all is to forgive all.
Thank you very much for joining us, Jim, and don't beat up any of the female production team on the way out.
Thank you, sir.
Or be beat up by them.
Bob, Israel's always in the news, but it's in the news in an even more pronounced fashion at the moment with Ariel Sharon's collapse. And I've always wondered, as an Australian Jew, am I meant to be a Zionist because I'm Jewish?
No,
or am I meant to be an anti-Zionist because, you know, I'm progressive and stuff like that? Who have we got with us?
Here's poor little me in the middle of all of you three heavies. I've got to
Just get on
introduce
with
at risk to myself, pro-Zionist, Jewish comedian, ostentatious.
Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Bob.
And writer Anthony Lowenstein, who is anti-Zionist. And he's presently writing a book on Zionism and the Australian Jewish community.
Now, ostentatious.
Yes, sir.
Why should I be a Zionist?
Well, I've always been a supporter of Israel, and I continue to be so, and I do believe that there will be a solution.
But what about the whole thing, Palestinians getting screwed over, kicked off their land?
Well, I don't think that it's going to continue for much longer. I think that whatever happens with Ariel Sharon, I believe the left side of his body is working. Whatever happens, I think that there will be a solution, and I think that the Palestinians. This is the way I see it.
Yes.
I think, along with a lot of Israelis, I think that there will be a two-state solution. Mr. Lowenstein probably thinks of a one-state solution.
Look at things from my perspective,
Well,
man. If I'm reading like Amnesty International reports and I'm reading in the newspaper and it's saying the Palestinians, you know, the Israeli soldiers are doing this, they're abusing their human rights, shouldn't I become an anti-Zionist and stand up for the Palestinians?
Every country in the world has a history of bad behaviour.
Yes.
Israel's not isolated in that respect. I want that country to be a safe country for the Jewish people. I don't believe the Jews should be pushed into the sea, which has been the agenda of the Arab countries for many, many years. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Lowenstein?
Mr. Lowenstein, why should I be an anti-Zionist? The Palestinians have been offered peace in the past and they've said no. They're blowing up pizza cafes. Why should I be an anti-Zionist?
Well, I suppose the reason why you'd be anti-Zionist, well, mainly because as a Jew, I think that all people are equal, full stop. So the idea of a Jewish state to me is as strange as a Christian state or Islamic state. So the idea of being a Zionist, Zionism as an ideology essentially means that Jews are regarded as superior as anybody else. And the idea of Israel as it exists today and as it always exists is that Jews are treated differently and better than Arabs or Palestinians.
But why then, for example, would one campaign for like East Timor? Because that's a particular ethnicity, and saying that as an ethnicity they deserve a homeland. Like, why can't you just carry that over to Israel and say the Jews deserve a homeland?
I think the Jews do deserve a homeland. I'm not actually against the state of Israel at all.
Where do you want that homeland to be? In the Kimberleys?
If there was a Jewish community somewhere in the world where like all the Jews had to go through checkpoints and were living behind a wall and under military occupation, wouldn't Australian Jews go, that's not acceptable?
Well, you haven't been to Caulfield, have you? Been to Caulfield?
Yeah.
That's what it's like. Every time I go into Caulfield, that's what it's like.
Wouldn't Australian Jews not accept that and kind of campaign for that to change?
Sure,
and therefore, isn't that an argument that I should be an anti-Zionist?
No, I don't think it's an argument it should be an anti-Zionist. I don't think that Israel wants that occupation. I don't think they've ever wanted that occupation. No, that was land that was taken by Jordan, which included our most important holy site, which is the Wailing Wall. We weren't allowed access to that Wailing Wall after 1948 and before 1967. Jews weren't allowed to go to their most holy site.
How come when you read like Amnesty International reports, it's like in the Arab world, it's like this bottomless pit of human rights abuses, even the Palestinian Authority, bottomless pit of human rights abuses, yet the only time and the Arab nations seem to care and become small L liberals and left-wing pinkos is when
they're talking about Israel.
When they're talking about the Jews attacking the Palestinians.
That's a very good point, Mr. Lowenstein.
There's no question that most of the Arab world is controlled by autocracy. I'm not disagreeing with that. The issue is a lot of the Arab countries want to some degree or need to get rid of that kind of shaka, which is often supported by the West. But the fact is that the issue of a so-called Western country in the middle of an Arab world is going to cause an issue.
Maybe I should base this whole whether I'm going to be pro-Zionist or anti-Zionist, I should base it on the worst flack I'm going to get or what's going to get me in less trouble. Ostentation, what's the worst flack you've got for your position?
I'm guessing none.
On what? On Zionism?
Yes.
Mostly from Lowenstein. Because I rang him up and abused him. He put me on every website known to the left, from John Pilger to Noam Chomsky to wherever possible. Everybody has mentioned me and said so.
So what's like the worst flack you've got for your position, Anthony Lowenstein?
Lowenstein. I guess as a Jew in the last few years, you get a lot of hate mail. You get a lot of people calling you and abusing you.
From whom?
Jews particularly. A lot of people who are so insecure in their position, particularly Jews, non-Jews too, but especially Jews, who feel so insecure in their position, the only way they can actually deal with the issue is to crush any kind of opposing views, which to me says one thing. It says that their position towards Israel is so insecure that they need to actually
It's not insecure, it's about pride. And if you came from, as I come from, a Holocaust survivor, and you realise that at that time in our history there was nowhere else for us to go.
No.
That's not justification for abusing people now.
No, it isn't any justification for abusing anybody, but that was the only place for the Jewish people to go at that time. And we do have an historical connection with that land, unlike the white settlers in this country.
The situation in Australia is completely incomparable.
Why is it incomparable? Tell me why it is incomparable.
I'm not. The situation in Australia.
But why is it? No, seriously, why is it incomparable? You have a white population coming in here, the indigenous people, who in fact are like the indigenous Jewish people, not the indigenous Palestinians.
And there's attempted genocide, and I'm not disagreeing with that whatsoever.
But so how do you justify your position living? How can you say I can live in this occupied country? You live in an occupied country with a lot of people who are under the thumb.
I agree with that, and I work.
What are you doing about the Aboriginal situation at the moment?
What do people do about any sort of conflict in the world? The issue is, if we're talking about Israel, we can talk about the situation in other occupied countries as well.
So why are you so determined, and why you put all your energy into Israel?
Who says I am? I'm not. But the focus
I haven't seen much on your website about what's going on with the Aboriginal people and how disenfranchised and marginalised they feel.
The situation in Israel as a Jew is something that, as someone who is Jewish, I feel very strongly about.
But you're a Jew, mate. You're a Jew living in Australia, and you're saying that ethically you should behave in a way above other people in a way.
I don't think that. But the difference is that Zionism.
Why aren't you directing your energy towards what's going on with the Aboriginal people? These people are disadvantaged in this country
which I agree with.
As a white person occupying. So you're living in an occupied country.
Guys, I've given you 20 minutes to hit each other, and it hasn't happened. You're clearly not going to actually physically beat each other, Jerry Springer style. So, thank you very much, Ostentatious. Thank you very much, Anthony.
And Mr. Lowenstein.
Bob, you heard the facts from two vice parties who are no doubt both fudging the statistics for their point. So what is it? Am I going to be anti-Zionist or pro-Zionist?
Be Jewish.
Be Jewish? Who knew you'd come up with some third answer that didn't get to the point? Should I be on the side of the Israelis or on the side of the Palestinians?
Be Jewish. Be on both sides.
I don't know about me, but you know my flat. I didn't realise. I think my flat is a Zionist. I have a Zionist flat. I didn't realise this until I had these Palestinian dudes over, and I realised how many little Israeli trinkets I've got all over my flat that I've built up over the years.
Oh.
So, you know, I'm like Amos Oz.
You're embarrassed if they came in?
No, they came in, I was like, oh, there.
But they didn't throw up or anything?
No, they didn't like that. And I guess it's weird. Like, what's the dynamic? Is it like, for them, is that like a black person seeing a Confederate flag?
Good manners would say, let the man have what he wants in his own home.
Thank you, Father Bob.
Thank you, John.
Who is our guest this week?
Anna Kaufman, who's a Messianic Jew.
Now, how is a Messianic Jew different from a regular Jew?
Messianic Jews believe in the Messiah, Jesus. Yeah, correct.
So then how come you're not Christians?
You could say that you are in one sense, except for we do not lose our Judaism.
Do you eat pork?
No.
That's the important one.
Isn't it?
Yes.
How does the rest of the Jewish community feel about the Messianic Jews? Not happy?
We've had a few bricks through our windows over our time. Yeah, unfortunately. But you find that most people are curious, but there are a minority that are pretty anti, as you can imagine.
Now, have you been out with a Messianic Jew before?
Yes, I have, but it's started not to date since then.
Oh, really? It was that bad?
No, it wasn't. A good guy, except for I found that he wasn't the one. And I believe that God will bring the right person at the right time.
Now, what are your hobbies? What's your favourite film? What music do you like? And do you do like anything like tapestry or latch hook or knitting Nancy or anything like that?
Definitely not knitting. I love the outdoors. Movies, as I said before, nothing like King Kong.
Not Narnia?
Yeah, like Narnia.
Like Narnia.
Yeah. Do you like it?
I like the book.
Yeah,
yes,
fantastic.
but I haven't seen the picture yet.
Usually it's highbrow to say you've read the book and haven't seen the movie, but
Is
in the
it?
case of Narnia, where it's like for like 7-year-olds,
Yes.
you know, you don't sound more
just-
sophisticated than the
Yes.
book reading
No, but
people.
Narnia, if you read it as an adult, it's even better then, you know, like even
Thank
as a
you.
child.
What are you looking for in a life partner?
I definitely have to have a deep love for Yeshua, with Jesus. That is the most important thing you could ever have. You find that everything will follow into suit after that if they do have that love and respect.
Cool. Bob, if there is a Messianic Jew out there waiting to find their life partner, what should they do?
They should get in touch with mailbox at speakingintongues.com.au or the Post Office Box 434, Prahran, Victoria 3181.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
John, what's in this week for Bob's Billboard?
From John Marmarino's, slow down and smell the rosaries. You seem to have roses.
I don't like it. Go on.
From Liam Neville via email, some people have all the luck.
What's in that?
Well, it's saying that like if you commit yourself to like the Psalms and the scriptures, you'll have good luck.
No good.
From Peter Haydinger, come in and let a baby change you.
Oof. Out of season, Christmas.
Yeah, bad luck, Peter.
Bad luck, Peter.
Finally, from Paul Koss, Jesus the Messiah must be Jew King.
It's all too much, isn't it, really?
What?
The intellectual content of these messages is really overpowering.
Yeah, it is. No.
What's the second one?
Some people have all the luck.
All right, put that in.
Thank you, Liam Neville. You win. Some people have all the luck. Man, if you're not a talentless hack, what should you do?
Get in touch with mailbox at speakingintongues.com.au or Post Office Box 434, Prahran, Victoria 3181.
Bob, why did you make a comment on the dress sense of one of my colleagues this week in the production
You
office?
keep going on about that.
I didn't think it was too appropriate. If she wants to dress like that, like a hoochie with a short
me.
mini skirt and a thing, like just let her be.
I know. Look, it's.
You said, hello, how come you're more naked than you are
I didn't
dressed?
say that at all. I said something like, hello, why are you dressed thus on such a cold day, my dear, or something.
Yes.
No, that's all I meant. That's all I said.
Why can't you just let her be? If you want
Well, I mean, it was a long session and it was tired and I'm worn out and the frontal lobes have gone and you become inappropriate in your language, and you'll notice after that I flung open the door and rushed out into the street.
Would you ever kick anyone out of the church because they weren't dressed appropriately?
No.
Are you allowed anything? You're allowed thongs in church?
Yeah, but in my place, but this is a cultural thing. Lots of other churches.
What about singlet?
We weren't allowed in the old days if you had, what do you call this?
Are you allowed
Lipstick.
to just turn up in your shorts?
You are now.
Shorts, no shirt.
Yes.
You can turn up
Shirt
in your...
and no shorts, we may draw the line, I don't know.
I'll
We got a bloke goes to who's got a dress on.
a dress on at your
once in a-
church.
Yeah, now that's tempting to an old-timer like me to say, excuse me, sir, why are you here dressed like that? Now, I have to bite my tongue.
What kind of dress is it?
I don't know what kind. It's a plaid dress.
He wears a plaid dress. How old is he?
Oh, about 50.
And he comes in wearing a plaid
Well,
dress.
strangely, it's so strange that I daren't look anymore because he comes on occasions when probably I'm not feeling the best and I see this dress walk through the door of the church and my 1934 jeans tend to say, oh my God, what's this?
You know, I was once in synagogue and this guy came in wearing a safari gear, like a little pith helmet or whatever,
yes.
right? And I got the chance to do this once-in-a-lifetime wordplay. I couldn't believe my luck because there's a branch of Judaism called Sephardi Jews.
Oh,
you know
yes,
Sephardi
yes,
Jews,
yes,
right?
yes.
And there's another branch called Ashkenazi, so you're either one or the other. And when this guy came in with the pith helmet,
couldn't help yourself.
I said, well, he's not Ashkenazi, he must be a Safari Jew.
You were taking the pith out of him.
I was, and let me tell you, Jeremy Weinstein and Rabbi Groner laughed very heartily.
Oh, and the rabbi smacked a lot of you.
Thank you,
Did
Father
you get
Bob.
my pun?
Your pith.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father Bob.
Thank you, John.